by themselves, not a single one of those things mean anything.
But people with that background.
No, not people with background. That's one facet. That's what I'm trying to indicate to you. There's a matrix of information. Law enforcement doesn't act on one indicator. In my experience, they don't act on one single indicator in any situation, whether about criminal activity or terrorist activity.
Okay, well then you testify that this is an indicator of what they will react upon.
If there are other things that color it, it could be. But if there's no other things that color it, it's completely innocent, and usually is completely innocent.
Well,
and law
thank
enforcement
you for disclosing that now. Well, I have no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
And just a point of information, gentlemen, I apologize if I tried to interject this while you were speaking. In your materials provided today, there are 11 other reports that have been provided, so I would encourage everyone to. They were provided prior to the meeting, but could provide some other insight as well, in addition to the report that became so controversial. So, as we proceed, again, just a reminder to the committee to stick to the charge, and rather than going into the report, we really, we could be here all night. I don't mind to be, but I really don't want to be, because we all know what the report says. We do need to stick to the process, which is what our charge is. So with that, the gentleman from Green, I think you have a question or want to follow up on a previous question.
I wasn't done earlier, so I'm follow up. I think my concern with this whole fusion center situation has been, when I think back in the past, for example, Elian Gonzalez, the Branch Davidians in Waco, you know, real aggressive amounts of federal power taken in those situations. And of course, there were circumstances in each of them that don't necessarily relate what happens here in Missouri. But to me, seeing, for example, Elian Gonzalez, you know, home raided with people with more weaponry than the average citizen could ever imagine to have, when you have this information, and for example, one of the things I want to follow up on, Representative Featherberg, and I see you getting that questioning look there, but it's about false accusations. And when you do have a situation, for example, even though it's probably not the best example because of the highlight in the media, but what happened in Washington, I think it was Boston with Mr. Gates, you know, there was some confusion there on what occurred, and of course, anybody can typify that how you want it, but at the end of the day, I am a big believer in the protection of your private property rights and what occurs there. And so when I see, you know, automatic machine guns going into a home, regardless of how you look at that situation, I as a citizen don't feel safe from my government, because I realize at any one point I could say or do something where I could be the person on the receiving end of that type of force. And so what concerns me, and I think everyone, and it's been aptly said by many people today, but what are we doing to ensure that these reports, and that's why I think it's extremely important that we have these committees, because I would much rather be suspicious of my government than my government be suspicious of me. Because at the end of the day, the government has a lot more power they can use against me than the individual against the government. I mean, that's just common sense right there. And so while you've had a background, and see, I think part of the problem is people in your background, and I talked about this after I was coming here, you're looking at it from a law enforcement lens. You're not looking at it from an average citizen. I think it's hard for you to remove yourself from that setting to say, okay, as an average citizen, I do have real concerns about this. And I think it's very hard. We had testimony in our last hearing. You can see they weren't thinking about it like the average guy and how they view this. Rather, well, I know I'm a professional. I know I don't abuse or misuse any of my authority. But that doesn't get to it. People do. And people in government often do end up misusing that authority. And we want to be here to be that check and balance. And how are we assuring that is occurring? And I think part of what's frustrating is I think that you're looking at this committee saying you have no idea what you're talking about, and you're being politicians and you're getting overreactive, but we represent citizens who are very passionate about this, sir. And that's, I think, part of the frustration you're getting from some of the committee members is we want you, those folks in that capacity, even though you're in a half removed, to understand that and respect that and appreciate that. And the same thing, we respect and appreciate what you do, because we realize oftentimes you are ensuring that we're protected, but we don't want that line to be crossed. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. How do we ensure that line is not crossed?
We don't differ on that point. And one thing to remember is the MIAC, like as far as I know, all fusion centers are not operational. They don't break down doors with guns drawn. They know that they gather information, they put it out, and then the decisions made as to whether to be operational or not happen at the individual level, at the federal level, of agencies, whatever agency might be involved, state, federal, local, they make those decisions. The MIAC processes information and makes assessments.
And let me say,
helps plan training.
right now, that's not what happens, but what we want to ensure is suddenly you don't evolve into that.
We're on the same team.
Because that's often what happens. Everything, oh, we're fine, we're safe now. And then suddenly 5, 10 years later, as you've said, things happen, situations occur, some decisions are made, and suddenly what we would fear is what ends up occurring.
I appreciate your concern about that, and like I mentioned, like I said, it's a human endeavor. Mistakes will be made. That doesn't justify them, and procedures need to be in place to prevent that, and that's part of what your charge is. And I'm confident, I hope that you'll carry that charge out responsibly. I expect you will. I might ask, what I ask is that you do it in a way that doesn't impact the effectiveness of the good things MIAC does, because it does way many more good things than any bad thing.
And I think what we're asking out there, in my question there, we're asking you to be as critical as you can of your side of the end of it, rather than trying to gloss over it. And I feel like there's been a lot of glossing over and talking past the questions rather than going to the center of what we're trying to get to. And that's what I'm having a hard time from your end of it, getting really good information that says, okay, here's what we do, but here's where we could really do better, instead of just talking past us in your terms of, I mean, it's your background, I get it, but I'm not in your world. I don't live in that daily, and you know, I need layman terms here. I need average every day, and that's probably what's frustrating some of the committees, when I get in that layman terms and the questions we're asking.
As the chairman said, there are multiple other witnesses, but I remain ready, and my private time, I'll come to your office, whatever you want, and we can talk about it at great length if you'd like that. I'm happy to break it down to such terms as you feel are appropriate.
Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you, Chairman. I appreciate all.
Be sure to fill out a witness form if you would.
Right there.
Thank you very much. We'll call Mr. Stephen Knowles.
He's getting water.
To Rob Pillman.
Oh, I thought somebody else was telling me that. I'm sorry. If you want to go.
Does anybody have any batteries with them? I've got another set, but I think they're going to go low
for the
too.
committee, and I'll keep this as brief as possible, is, all right, my comment first is from our founding father, Thomas Jefferson, who said that when the people fear government, there is tyranny. And when the government fears the people, there is liberty. Okay? That is a very, very sound principle that this country was founded upon. What I'm curious to know is what part procedurally that this MIAC organization has